being an entrepreneur is not for everybody.
Whoa, what's going on? I'm going to wait until the rates go down to start buying properties. But if the rates go down, the property value is going to go up. Damn it. It just says it right away.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 17 of the Coffee Break Podcast. My name is Zach Graveson, and joining me today is a rising star in the world of finance here in Canada. Father of one, the man with the financial plan, Christian Fournier. How are you doing, sir?
Doing great, Zach. I'm going to have to start hyping you up with these, man. This is great.
Now, I'm looking forward to, there's a big UFC tomorrow, so I'm in my, Bruce Buffer? I'm in my announcer hype up mood today.
F1 and UFC, tomorrow's going to be a treat. I'm happy.
Yeah. So listen, great show we have planned today. A lot of headlines. But before we go into the headlines, we do record this on Fridays before we post on Mondays. And today, March 8th, it is Women's Day. So we just want to give a shout out to the women in our lives. I know me and you, Chris, we are surrounded by a lot of strong women.
Exactly.
We have always mentioned how your wife, my fiance, they've been massive parts in helping us grow our business. And also, I know that both of us have really strong, inspiring women figures as mothers too. Your mom is a business owner. My mom has done a ton for me. So just want to thank all the women out there, give you guys a quick shout out, and happy Women's Day to you all.
Happy International Women's Day. We would not be where we are today if it wasn't for the powerful women that surround us and the love. So thank you, guys.
Definitely not. What's the saying? It's a man's word. It's a man's world, but there wouldn't be nothing without a woman by their side.
Ooh, well said. Well said.
All right. So this week in the headlines, we got a common theme here looking at, again, it feels like we're beating on a dead horse here, but Wall Street Journal says the Fed is, quote, not far from gaining confidence to maybe reducing rates. So again, with the interest rates. However, in the article, when you actually read it, there's a little nugget there saying that the neutral rate might be higher than it was previously. So we might get into that. Other things kind of related is that there's been a hiring boom in the past 2 months since the year has started, which is renewing a fear that inflation might stay stubborn and remain high. And finally, this is kind of a random article I saw in the Wall Street Journal, but I think it's worth talking about. Next time you send an email to your doctor, don't be surprised if you get charged for it. Yep, that's right. Doctors are now charging fees for replying to emails. So I don't know. I feel like there's something to dig into there and talk about. And but first thing I want to talk about, Chris, before we get into the headlines, I had a really cool story this week with one of my clients. This is someone who I started working in November of 2022. Actually, someone who had multiple different advisors in the past and didn't have good experiences. So when I met him, he was already kind of weary about working with a financial advisor. And but we had some good talks. I told him my plan for him and all that. And this was someone who is living with his mother right now. He takes care of his mother, so a lot of responsibility on his shoulders to take care of her and her health and all that. But he does want to buy a house. Also, he's in his 40s and looking to buy his first property. So it's never too late, guys. But the cool story with him is that his plan to buy a house was in the next 4 to 5 years. That was his goal.
Okay.
And so we had one full year, and this year was time for our annual check-in where we look at, the performance of his portfolio. And we talked about his goals. And I asked him again, I said, hey, look, the plan for the house, are we thinking another 3-4 years or... And then we started talking. I told him, I said, look, step one, you just need to know what you would qualify for, how much you could borrow from the bank in order to buy a house. And then it will at least give you an idea. And the reason why I'm mentioning this story is not only because of how well things went, but because of our service is not only to advise you on finances, it's to build a team around you when you have a goal. So for example, this client, we referred him to our partners, our mortgage brokers. And I'm telling you, Chris, within a week, he had met with the mortgage broker, came back to me, told me how much he qualified for. We looked at his finances, saw that he'd have enough for a down payment for the type of house he wanted. Then I referred him to a realtor that we know very well. We do a lot of work with. And within that week of the time that he met the mortgage broker, he had an offer accepted. He did one offer accepted. And now he's going to move in by the end of the summer into his new house. And just a little over a year ago, he thought this was a 5-year plan. So it just goes to show that when you do set a goal and you start actually working towards it, and I've experienced this in the past few years, a lot of times things happen much quicker than we thought they would. We tend to overestimate what we could do in the short term, but underestimate what we can do in the long term. And for him, it was only a little over a year. So that was an awesome story that I want to share. I know he's listened to the podcast a few times. So if you're listening, congratulations again. I'm extremely happy for you. And message to everybody, it's not a question about if it's the right time to buy a house. If you want to be a house owner, if you want to own property, own real estate, start working towards the goal. And I promise you it's going to happen a lot quicker if you have the right people around you. So that was a cool story.
That's huge, Zach. And the fact that it was all done within a week. Look, ask someone to try to get a meeting at their ranch for an appointment with their advisor and see how long it takes. Okay? We work incredible hours, Zach. We're extremely busy. Yet if a client calls us, it is very rare within 48 hours we can't have a slot to meet with them booked, even though our agenda is jam-packed. We'll find the time for them. So look, you got that then. You send them to our mortgage brokers who, by the way, are extremely busy. Yet I don't know how they do it. I could call them right now and they'll pick up. They're extremely available. You send them to your broker, got the job done. Another little nugget we could take out of that, I feel, and this applied to me, it might not apply to everyone, but some of the best decisions I've made in my life were very quick. In the sense, I don't take too much time to analyze things. If there's something, I'll analyze it very quick. I'll commit and I'll go for it. Opportunities come. I've taken a lot of opportunities. I've taken some risk. So far, my batting average is extremely high and they've paid off very well. But I know some people that they're in this, they're scared to step out of that little comfort zone. They're staying in it. Next thing you know, that opportunity has gone by. I was scrolling on Reddit once, and it was funny. The guy, it was after the house has exploded. He said, I would have been better off just buying my house, buying a BMW, a Porsche, and spending X amount of money than had just waited and done nothing, because now I've got nothing and everything else is way too, I can't even afford any of the things I could have done if I would have just bought it and then sold. So I'm not saying that you always have to be impulsive, but be ready to pull the trigger if you're at that stage and just go and take some risk. So I love that story, Zach, and huge testament to that client.
No, but a great point that you just mentioned is the fact that taking decisions quickly. Yeah. It's really interesting because in the book Think and Grow Rich, there's a study they did, and there's a lot of people love this book. We had a guest recently on the podcast who I think has read the book at least a dozen times.
Yep.
I like the book personally. To me, it's a lot about believing in yourself and kind of manifesting your goals and all that. Mm-hmm. To me, I'm at a point where I don't need to be told that I can achieve things. I'm just, all right, what's the secret formula and all that. But in the book, a study that I thought was really, really interesting that came back to my attention was they looked at 25,000 people who had tried to become an entrepreneur and failed. It literally just didn't work. So 25 people who failed as entrepreneurs. And then they compared that to 700 multimillionaires, people who were extremely successful in their business. And they wanted to identify what was the one difference between the two of them. Is there one thing that they can put their finger on that made the difference between 25,000 people failing in business and 700 millionaires being extremely successful as entrepreneurs?
Okay.
And there was one thing that they all had in common. The 25,000 had in common, the 700 had in common, but that were completely opposites from one group to another. It was the speed at which they made decisions. So that goes directly into what you just said. The 700 millionaires were extremely quick to not only identify a problem, the real problem, the source of the problem, because
Mhm.
usually we look at the symptoms and think it's the problem, but we got to know what's the cause of those symptoms. And they're quick to identify the problem, find a solution, and put that solution in place to start actively working on that problem. Whereas the people who had failed in business were very slow to react.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that's really important to anybody out there who thinks that they try something, they change and all that. I encourage people make quick decisions, because let's say for us personally, the amount of times that we've adjusted social media strategy and whatever, and
Yeah.
our goal is consistency, but we're not going to do something over and over again just because we're like, let's give it a year. As
Hmm.
soon as we see something, we see how people react, we see how it did, and after that we adjust. We're always trying to make a lot of changes, and just since January 1st of this year, we've made a lot of adjustments and we've evolved a lot quicker.
Yep.
So
100%.
the speed to which you make decisions can be a major difference between you achieving in business and you failing. So that was a study I thought was really cool. So that just encouraged me to keep being very, very quick on making decisions. And again, if it's not the right one, great, you're quick at making decisions, so you'll be quick to react and then
Realize.
change again and
Exactly.
adjust. So
Exactly. It's good. And Zach, you talked a bit about symptoms. I think it's a good transition to tell me this headline you read about doctors. What's going on? What is this? This must be in the States too, by the way, because I'm guessing
yes,
Canada. I mean, okay.
yeah. So I'll look at it right here. So the medical bill you never expected, doctors now charge for emails. This is the title of an article in the Wall Street Journal, and it was about someone who sent an email to their doctor, and then mail, they get a bill, and it's $39. Like, what? $39? What happened? I didn't go to the doctor and all that. But it was actually the doctor charging them for replying to an email. And the doctors were justifying it, saying, hey, it's only fair if we're taking time out of our day to reply to an email. There should be a fee, like when you come see us, if we're doing that. But to me, I just thought it was absolutely ridiculous. Can you imagine? And first of all, who's allowing all these fees? They're so strict on us, our fees. And I mean, I know this is the States and in
Yeah.
Canada, but usually it's generally pretty similar. So
Hmm.
I'm just surprised that someone could even charge for an email. I mean, at the end of the day, there's got to be something you just do for the benefits of your clients.
Oh,
There's a lot
yeah,
of stuff, a
100%.
lot of time. Chris, how many time did you spend just this week doing stuff for clients where you didn't get a dime for?
Oh, man, it's often, man. And you know what? I love doing it because it's a mutual relationship, and we want it to be a long-term relationship. So we do a lot of things that are quote unquote pro bono for a lot of clients. What scares me with that headlines, I could just put myself in my university days with when you have no money. I could just picture myself not feeling well. I'm like, man, am I gonna reach out to my doc and I'm gonna get that $40? I can't afford to be sick right now. Imagine if
Yeah.
that's what it comes to. And it's sad because people are gonna have that decision. If they have the man, do I put food on the table for myself and my family, or do I go kind of check what this is or push it off? It's alarming, and it's tough, man. Like I can see in a sense, if you're a professional, you get paid for what you do and stuff like that. But there's a certain line, especially when it comes to health. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be paid for what they do. They're paid extremely well. They work extremely hard. I'm not taking anything away from doctors. I know a few of them, and look, they're worth every penny they make. But sending in a bill, sending like, mm, yeah.
You probably spend more time charging them than it would have taken you just to go back and do your own thing. I
Oh,
mean,
100.
if
Yeah,
it,
just drafting up that $49 bill probably costs you more time than just, hey, look, come in. This is it. This is what I think. Merci, bonsoir. On to the next. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm hoping that this is an exaggerated headline where the person who got the bill actually asked like for some extensive information, or if the doctor actually had to do a lot of work. But if it was something like, hey doc, when was the last time, what was the date we changed my prescription or whatever, because i'm
Yeah.
i'm i'm
Yeah.
applying for this new insurance, I need the information or whatever, and then they charge them. Come on,
That's,
man.
look, one thing this can be related to, it's lawyers. I know a
Mm,
lot of lawyers, and they bill everything. And I mean, It's fair. It is their job, but it can get tough to manage, especially when it's an. One thing that's great about us in our business, Zach, we charge an AUM. We're fee based. Us, it's 1% of the money we manage.
Our
Okay.
salary is based off of the performance of your portfolio.
And look, what people don't realize too, it's the market goes down by 20%. Our income could go down by hundreds of
Yeah.
thousands. It's insane. There's a huge, like, we want to make sure that they do the best over the long term. But no, it's, and the industry's gonna, things are gonna keep changing, and we're gonna become more and more. I don't know. It's tough to say, but that was alarming what you told me about the doctor there. So what else? What else is there that you were seeing there in the markets that you wanna talk about and cover?
I mean, like I said earlier, we're beating on a dead horse here with the interest
Interest
rates.
rates.
But what I found interesting is that the title very encouraging. I mean, even if they're kind of, they're not saying the Fed is close to reducing rates. It's the Fed is not far from gaining confidence to reduce the rates. It's like, all right, well, you're just kind of, you're kind of keeping people on the hook, but you're not really giving them what they really want. At the end of the day, say what you need to say. And what they really needed to say is when you dig into the article and they say the neutral rate is going to be higher now. So correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, because that, like, more the economy lingo than me. And yes, I'm openly admitting that Chris is more the investments guy than me. I'm more on the insurance side. And also I like to take the perspective of the client too. So sometimes I like to ask the questions that I believe are on people's mind. But what does it
Yeah,
mean
yeah.
when they say the neutral rate will be higher now? Is that meaning that the neutral rate was, around that 1.3% before COVID, if you were buying a house back in 2019, 2020, and now the regular interest rate, is that what they're calling the neutral rate? Like the interest rate when inflation is at its target goal will be higher. Is that what they mean?
Look, put it simply, it's usually it's the supply and demand for the savings rate, so, or the inflation rate. I mean, we've targeted 2% for a very long time. It might be higher now. And look, if we go back years and years ago, a 5% base rate for the Fed was pretty average. We got lucky. We were
Spoiled.
literally spoiled. You said it perfectly. We were given, I called it, what we had previously, I call it free money. When you could borrow at 1 or 2%, I call that free money. So, yes, if this neutral rate will be higher, and for we're using the term higher, but it's more, maybe more average. I can see that happening. So the people that think that the rates are going to go back to what they've been in the past few years, personally, forget it. That's my point of view on that. Will they go down a bit? Sure. But we have to get used to this new non-free money environment. So that's my point of view on that. But the fact that they've been kind of dancing around this, and I mean, people, we hear it all the time. It's like, oh, I'm just going to wait till the rates go down. Let's go back to real estate. I'm not a real estate expert, okay? But people are saying, look, I'm going to wait until the rates go down to start buying properties. Fair enough. But if the rates go down, the property value is going to go up because, oh, people are going to be able to afford more supplies. And well, the demand's going to go up, the supply is going to go down. So what's going to naturally happen? The price is going to go much higher. So don't bet on stuff that you cannot control to be able to go and drive those decisions. Focus on the stuff that you can control, like your client did. All right, I need to put money aside to be able to afford a house. He put the money aside, he was able to. What else can he control? The budget. Okay, what in my budget am I able to buy with? Bam. He can control that. Now it's to go and find the property, surround himself. So focus on those things, because if you focus too much on the external factors, it's a losing game. And we've
Yeah, and at the
seen
end,
it. So yeah.
and what do we say? Don't time the market. This is different, but at the same time, you're waiting for the perfect time to time the market. You'll never know the perfect time until it's 5, 10 years down the road, and then you can look back.
Yep.
And to touch on the interest rates for a last time, they're very high right now if you look at the last 10 years. But if you look at the last 50, they're still low.
Mm-hmm.
These are low interest rates if you look all the way back to like the 70s or when our parents were buying houses. Now they were buying houses for like 47,000. Totally different game with a backyard, a car and everything. But one thing I do have to say, though, disclaimer, is that the client who did accomplish his goal extremely quickly was very disciplined. He has a
Nice.
budget. He's very strict on his budget. He made sure he maximized every single penny he could get from his employer's contribution to his RSPs. He has an emergency fund. He has his TFSA. And you know what? He's actually a client who, again, a perfect example. This same client used the emergency fund to perfection. Why? Because he calls me, says, Zach, I was on a trip to the US and something happened with my car. It cost me 3,000, but it's 3,000 US dollars. And it's really bad, but I had to repair it right now because I was on a road trip. So I needed to get back. So I have to take 3,000 out of my TFSA. I'm like, no, you don't. We have an emergency fund. He has his 3 months of expenses in an emergency fund. So he thought he had to take out of his TFSA, where people, that's already a good thing because he had money available.
Mm-hmm.
But usually people think about, damn, I got to put that on the credit card or whatever it may be. But I said, hey, whoa, we're not touching the TFSA. We're going to go get in your emergency fund. And now what we did is, instead of his weekly investments in his TFSA, those went to rebuild the emergency fund. Now we hit his target, and now we're going back to the TFSA. So he's been doing everything
By the
perfectly.
book. Wow.
And I had a few conversations. There's a few, 2 organizations and 1 school right now that I'm talking to do presentations on the ABCs of personal finance.
Yeah.
And they asked me, what are the main things you want to touch on? And, obviously I could go in a whole bunch of different topics, but I'm not going to go see, people who are in their last year of university, and talk about, insurance. That's not what their questions are about.
You'll lose them in a couple minutes.
I'll lose them the minute I say the word.
Yeah.
So, real quick, what I focus on is budget. And I'm not talking about sitting down every month, looking at everything you spent on. Doesn't match the budget. Do you have to make a no? I'm talking about bring it down to one number where you look at what are your expenses, how much do you make, and after that, how much do you have left? Set a portion of that for your savings, and then whatever that number is, you just gotta not bust that number when from one paycheck to another. Let's say you get paid every 2 weeks, and okay, as long as I'm below 400 every 2 weeks in my in my wants, because my needs like Wi-Fi and all that, those we took that into account. But then you just bring it down to one number. So first thing is budget. Second thing is informing them on credit, because we see it. People see a credit card and they're like, free money. It's not free money. It's the most expensive type of money you can probably get. Yeah. So informing them on credit. And the last one, what was the last one? We have budget, credit, and investing, because the best asset is the fact that they're young. So I use the classic examples of the 2 twins. One started at 18, the other one waited till they were 25. And then the massive difference, I think it was 1.6 million versus 700 just for waiting 7 years. It was almost more than double. So just to say that there's ABCs there that you follow, but that client reached his goal extremely quickly, but he mastered the ABCs of personal finance. And if you're not sure what we talked about when we said those ABCs, or, call your financial advisor. Even if you're not with us, even if you're at the bank, call your financial advisor and ask questions. And if you can't reach him quickly and it takes you more than a week to get a meeting with him, or worse, if they charge you for replying to an email, just give us a damn call. We'll help you out.
I got a client this year, and one of the driving factors for this client to move over with me was the fact that it kind of came to the status quo that their advisor took a month to reply to them to an email. Imagine that. I get anxious if I haven't replied in 24 hours. Literally, it's like, whoa, what's going on? But I'm gonna come back to a thing you said during before the ABC. You said your client did X, Y, and Z. One of the things you mentioned, Zach, was he maxed out his pension or his opportunity. So I want to talk about that. Okay,
free money, baby.
Exactly.
To go get.
That's the first thing we tell our clients, that they're in the accumulation phase. If they're working for someone that offers a group pension plan, look at the details and make sure you're maximizing every penny that you can to maximize their contribution. Before you even start putting money with us, before you start putting money elsewhere, look at that. The reason why, if you come to us and you say, okay, for every dollar you put in, that's all, we can't add money to your own investment account. We'll make that money grow. With your employer, though, some employers will add, if you put $1 in, we'll put $2 in. If you put $1 in, we'll add 50 cents in. It's free money. So make sure to do that. We met some clients this week, Zach. We're looking and analyzing a plan to put in place. I've got a few businesses that I'm doing it for their employees. The amount of money they can put us, it's impressive. It's great. If you guys are in a business and you work for someone, go and ask your employer, hey, do we have any options? Are you guys thinking of it? If you guys, and if they need help, if they need a resource, reach out to Zach and I. We can put it in place for you guys. But that is one of the best cheat codes to maximize your wealth. And another little caveat on that is a lot of you guys may have it. You didn't look, you just started a new job. They send you this package. You probably don't even remember filling it out. So what I recommend, look at it, send it out to us if you have any questions. It'll take us 2 minutes. Don't worry, you won't get a bill of $40 for us to reply to that email. We'll just let you know, look, you guys are invested properly, or maybe look at this. You guys are young. You should be in equities, depending on your profile and all that. But just that little 5 minutes you can take could be the difference of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars in the long run. So if you guys can have a little cookie for today there, that's a little nugget there that I want to give you guys.
Yeah, there's not a single advisor on earth who can guarantee that he's going to double your money. If you have an employer and they say, hey, look, we'll match up to 2% of your salary.
You put in
$2,000, you get another 2 at the end of the year. So it's a guaranteed double. So that's why when I also talk with clients, we're not, obviously we wanted to match the retirement goals, but it's rare that you'll have a client that's worried about what their group plan is invested in, because the massive benefit of a group plan is the contribution from your employer.
Yeah.
And again, that's another thing. Email your advisor. If you have a group plan at work right now, write to HR, ask them, I want to know how I can maximize my contributions, and I want to know my group plan for insurance and for investments. That big document that's about 50 pages, just send it to us. For me, that's the first thing I do with all my clients in insurance. I always say, do you have a group plan? Yes, I do. Perfect. Ask HR to send you the package and just forward it to me. And then I go through it. There's 54 pages. I know exactly where to go. And within 5 minutes, I email you with bullet points saying, life, this is how you're covered. Critical illness, this is how you're covered. Disability, this is how you're covered. And my job is to look at, where are you vulnerable? I had clients yesterday, very high level accountant, CPA, doing very well for herself, great salary, everything. However, doesn't even have group insurance. So now if she can't work, they can't even pay off the mortgage. So we put something in place. Had another one this week. She does have disability insurance, but it's after 2 years of disability. She's a nurse. She's making 6 figures, making really good money. But then when I looked at it, I was like, all right, well, your unemployment insurance is probably going to cover you about 3 months. And after that, we got a 21-month gap where you're making $0.
No,
your cost of living is someone making over 6 figures. That's when she realized, she's like, holy crap. All right.
No, they'd be screwed. Another thing too, people that are making a lot of commission, okay? Because I've seen a lot, when I was doing insurance back in the day, Zach, it's a lot of people, or a lot of these group plans, they're based on the base salary. So imagine if you're someone that has a 35K base, it's kind of like a formality that, okay, that's your base, but you're making 100, 200, 300K in commission every single year, but you're just insured on the base. You think you're good. You think you're covered. Try living off what you were 10%, 20, 30% of what you're making. You won't make it.
Waiters.
So that's a great point. Yeah.
I have this wasn't this week. This was another week, but I had a couple where the guy was making, very, very good money for a waiter. It almost made me want to take a part-time job.
It could
But,
go. Yeah.
but yeah, very, very good money. But then after that, when you look at his group plan, he's like, yeah, I have disability, but I look at it, it's like, okay, well, you're going to make 65% of 35,000. Wow. It's like, yeah, because most of your
Tips,
stuff
bonus.
is tips.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it doesn't cover, it covers just your base salary.
Mm.
That's when he realized,
Ooh.
I need some coverage, because if ever I can't work, and his job, he's on his feet all day. So he breaks a leg or he whatever,
He's done.
he can't go to work. So that's something that yeah, so something we do for the clients. And again, if you're not one of our clients, email your advisor and let it be a test to see how responsive they are, because the first thing they should do is to see what you already have and build around that.
Yeah.
Man, we're already at the 30-minute mark.
Time flies when you're having fun, Zach.
Time flies when you're having fun. Quick thing that I want to touch on before we let you guys go, is I wrote an article this week for Founders, and it got, decent amount of traction, replies, reactions and all that. But I talked about how being an entrepreneur is not for everybody. The title of the article was in French, but it was "Quitting Your 9 to 5. Is it really a good idea?" And I think it hit a lot of people, because a lot of people, there's this fantasy about quitting your job and quitting the 9 to 5, but we don't talk enough about what's the reality of actually being an entrepreneur. I touched on 3 points. The first one being, if you're quitting your 9 to 5 because you don't like working 40 hours a week, being an entrepreneur is not for you. Because there's this saying that says you go from a 9 to 5 to a 5 to 9. But personally, and we had a great podcast. We have to wait before we release it, but we had a great podcast earlier this week with a business owner. And we talked about that, saying that, your job is more of it's a 24/7. You might not be working 24/7, but you're thinking about it, and you might get calls from clients or partners or whatever 24/7. When you work a 9 to 5, you close that laptop, you leave the office, your job is done. You don't have, most of the time, other commitments outside of the time that you're working. So if you're leaving just for the flexible schedule, yes, your schedule will be flexible, but it won't be an easier schedule. It's going to be way more packed. Second thing that I hit on is people who are quitting their jobs because they don't like having a boss. I wasn't a big fan of having a boss, because and I'm just saying overall, not for necessarily the companies I worked for, but overall, talking to people, it seems like most of the time people are promoted based off of tenure and not on competencies. They're not necessarily the best people. They're the people that have been there for a while, that have just been waiting to move up. And but if you're quitting your job because you don't like having a boss, well, you better be ready to be your own boss, because there's no one there to hold you accountable, to call you out when you're not working hard, or making sure that you hit your goals. You determine your goals. So that's another thing. If you're sick of having a boss, be ready to be one your own. And what was the last thing? Do you have anything about kind of the myths of being an entrepreneur?
While you were thinking about that the last point there, what you just said about, the promotion, sometimes it's based on tenure. One thing I've seen, it's alarming. Sometimes they won't promote someone because they're too good at what they're doing.
Oh my God.
So they're going to go and they'll promote someone that's more average, get them better conditions, get them a better pay, because they literally can't afford that. They're top performer in that position, even though they're the ones that should move up and get that next job. They will not sometimes hire them because they can't afford to lose that person in that position. And I think that's outrageous.
Yeah. I mean, perfect example. I know someone right now who is, in the process of getting a promotion.
Yeah.
But her biggest worry right now is that she's the top performer on her team.
Yeah.
She knows that if she leaves that team, and she knows that everybody knows that if she's not there, things are going to crumble. She has twice the workload as everybody else. Yeah. She's doing way more than what is originally asked by that role, but she's holding the whole thing together by a thread. But
literally,
if she gets promoted, then she leaves that team. So that's why her biggest worry is that everything went great for the interview process, but is like, are they not going to promote me because I would hurt the team more than I would benefit the company by going into that higher position. So, so
No,
yeah.
100%. No, and going back on entrepreneurship, it's a roller coaster, man. It is a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Look, I'm gonna open up. This week was one of my least productive weeks since I've
Oh yeah.
started. 100%. Look, been it's amazing start of the year. Amazing.
Mhm.
Clients going, everything's going well. Markets are going well. Money's coming in. Very busy. Good RSP season. This week it's just kind of like, all right.
Yeah, but you're on the back end of RSP
Yeah.
season.
So I'm like, you know what?
You're
Pretty
hungover
much
right now.
exactly. Hungover from RSPs. Everything's done. Look, you know what? I'm gonna take it slower this week. I'm gonna wake up a little bit later, which is rare for me. I'll just kind of coasting. But if I did this every single week, forget it. I wouldn't be able to. And with that said, though, I embrace this time because I know, all right, recharge, but now I'm back at it at 150%. You know, one video that Mr. Beast, okay, I'd say the most successful YouTuber of all time.
Yeah.
He says the GOAT of you.
He
The GOAT
is
by
the
far.
Tom Brady, Michael Jordan of YouTube.
One thing I loved, and I'm not telling people go and burn out because that's not where I'm trying to get at, but he says, like, guys, I will go and I'll burn out every third week, fourth, whatever. He'll work 15, 20 hours a day, every single day, take a burnout, do nothing for a day or two, and then he's back at it. I've kind of been like that in the sense I'll go hard 100. I don't have many, like, I'm not that I'm not balanced, but I'm kind of on the both sides. So when I'm going full pin. When I'm slowing down, I'm kind of a little too slowed down, which was this week. But you know what? I know next week I'll just be back at it 10 times harder and just keep at it. But yeah, it's roller coasters. You have to have resilience, long-term vision. And one positive thing before we wrap this up that I want to say, it's that I've been in business for over 5 years now. I haven't had one Monday where I'm like, man, I am not looking forward to Monday. Monday, it's going to sound weird, Zach, is one of my favorite days of the week. It's like, all right, I'm back at it. We're back in it. It's another week. I'm going to set the tone on Monday because how you set the tone, for me, determines the rest of your week. So I love Mondays. And I don't know a lot of employees that can go and say, you know what, Monday is my favorite day of the week because it's so fun. No, it's, I haven't had that Monday scaries or creepies, whatever they call it there on social media, but no. And yeah, so that's what I wanted to say on that.
And I mean, we gave you guys some little warning signs about being an entrepreneur. Most of the time, we're hyping you guys up and encouraging you to take that leap of faith. But despite the red flags that we're telling you, the beauty of it is that if you're if the way you see Mondays, like Chris is talking about his Mondays now, that's for a lot of people the way they see Fridays. You know, because it's like last day. But if you look forward to Mondays, like right now you look forward to Fridays, all that is going to be totally worth it. So yeah, so that's been amazing. And one thing you mentioned that I think is really important is that, you said this week was a little bit, a slower week or whatever. And I think the key to long-term growth, and this is one thing that I've learned in the past 2.5 years since I quit my 9 to 5, is it's like the markets. It's always going to be up, down, up, down, up, down. But what I realized lately and what my focus has been on is there's always going to be really good days. Like, let's say for me, my week was kind of the opposite as yours.
Yeah,
I had an incredible crazy week where there's not a day where I finished before 8 o'clock.
Yep.
Tons of meetings. The most meetings I've had actually since I've started in this business. So things are going really well. But then after that, there are the slower weeks like you had, but I think my goal right now, the way I see it, is I'm trying to limit the drawdown. I'm trying to limit. So when I do have slower weeks, I accept it, but it's okay. Well, if let's say I embrace that this week is going to be a slower week, well, let me make sure that I still am on top of all my emails, that everything is moving smoothly so that next week I don't have to catch up again. Because if let's say you have a slower week and then it kind of goes down and then you got to make all this work back up before getting to where you're at before,
you're done.
It's a totally different story. But if you're able to have a slower week, but limit the drawdown, limit the amount of catching up you'll have to do when you go back, I think that's a big key. And what people have to remember, which is also kind of something very important to remember when you're investing, is let's say you see your progress like investments. If your investment goes down 10%, you go up 10%, you're not back to where you were.
Yeah.
You need to make 11% to just get back that 10% that you lost. So when you go down, it takes more work to get back to where you were before.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why the key when I look at long-term growth, and this is just my own personal self-reflection, is let me focus on, yes, the big days are always going to be there, but if I limit the worst days, if I get rid of all the worst days and just have slow days, big difference. Limit the drawdown. Same thing with your investments as in life. So
huge, dropping bombs on us.
Dropping bombs. We're trying. Good
stuff.
So hey, 40 minutes. Apologies. We went over our usual 30. Yeah. But something I do have to say, something I have to stop saying, by the way, is it's a bad habit I have. So I apologize right away. It's something my grandfather always said, and it seems like I caught the habit. Okay. I always say that. So I'm going to be intentional on not saying that anymore. And I know my mom is very happy to hear this right now because she listens and she hates when I say that. She's a listener,
one of our top supporters, which I love.
Damn it.
It just says it right away.
I don't even remember what I was going to say, but thank you guys, because we are at 15 subscribers on YouTube. It's been great. We've actually been growing on average 1 a week. This week we had +2. So if you're watching this, subscribe, leave a comment. I said it again. We're waiting for the first person who's going to leave a comment so we can give you guys a shout out.
Yes, sir.
We've been calling it out. We've been waiting. So first person to leave a comment, we're going to give you a shout out. But thank you so much for the support. We're getting more and more people reaching out saying that they're watching. A lot of people we never think would be watching. Yeah. Then we talk to them. They say they are. So that's really cool. And Chris, I'm going to leave you with the final words before we wrap it up.
Have a great week, everyone. Look, we bounce back and we bounce back harder. So that's all I have to say for this week. Enjoy it, and happy International Women's Day once again.
Yes, sir. Let's have a great week, guys. All right. Bye-bye.